Professor Fazal Mahomed, Professor of Applied Mathematics in the School of Kazam, Wits University. I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to chat with you. You've had such an illustrious career in applied mathematics in differential equations, specifically over 40 plus years. And the purpose of this Conversations in Science series is really to get to know the scientists behind the science. And we're keen to explore those avenues. I'm very sure that you have many opportunities and have had many opportunities to talk about your science, but we're really in this series wanting to talk about the person behind the science. So Fazal, as I recall, and thank you very much for sharing with me some of your written notes, but your journey started many years ago in Durban. I just would like the audience to understand a little bit about what inspired you to get into mathematics, to study mathematics seriously, because the circumstance, let's face it, was not easy. You grew up in apartheid South Africa, and the circumstances were very difficult, but yet you persevered and succeeded to such a great extent. Just talk us through a little bit about your experiences of early childhood and your parents, perhaps your grandparents, your high schooling situation, and teachers that might have inspired you along the way.
Yeah, I grew up in Durban, a place called Overport, and of course at that time we went to a school, primary school, which was St. Aidan's school, and then we had teachers there, and we didn't train, we had to go home. But my grandfather used to always prompt me to study mathematics. Even before I went to school, he taught me multiplication. Like, he showed me a building and he told me, "Do you know how many bricks are in this building?" And I looked at the building and I said, "Look, I mean, obviously you can't count. It was being constructed." And I said, "Obviously you can't." So I learned I tried to do multiplication. They say, "Oh, that's fantastic. You've done this without even going to school." And that prompted me, and my dad was very encouraging. And usually in the society then, I think you know, but also that people, parents, grandparents, family members want you to become a medical doctor or become an accountant, or that kind of stuff. Then my grandfather said, "No, you know what? He's gonna be in science. I want him to be an engineer or a scientist." Everybody said, "Why you want him to?" He said, "No, he can add and he can subtract and multiply and stuff like that." So he prompted me, and of course we had teachers in school. Although it was like group areas act, and we had to go to our own school. We had teachers there that really promoted the subject areas that they were teaching. I remember when I went after that to Centenary High School. That's also in Overport. It's just in Asheville, a place called Asheville. So we had lots of interactions with teachers. They used to try to give us presents if we could solve problems. So we were prompted to do mathematics, science, and so on. So in high school, so we were promoted. We were kind of encouraged to do mathematics, science, even accounting. So I mean, I like mathematics because my grandfather instilled in me that kind of love for mathematics, and I said, "Look, I want to go more towards that."
But what I get a sense is of you being challenged along the way, that folk were really pushing you beyond your limits and challenging you, and I think that was obviously very, very productive. I'm not so sure that we do this enough in our education, but let's talk briefly then about the political side of things. Westville was really not an easy place to work at, because obviously folk were quite actively involved in fighting against apartheid and challenging the broad status quo in the country. So how did you navigate through that? How did you? I mean, obviously it was not easy, and I can imagine the pressures that you experienced. But was that something that was reasonably easy for you to get involved in, or were you pretty much on the periphery? How did you experience that?
It was difficult because my friends were also politically minded, and some of them part of the PAC and some ANC. So it was that mix, and also the SACP. So, and also where I came from, we had Praveen Gordon living around there in that area. So it was like, we're saying that, hey, you need to know what's going on around you, and you need to know and also the time when we lived in Overport, um, the police used to come and get us out of the street. We couldn't play. There was no playground to play with. We tried to play in the street. The ball was confiscated, and if you got caught, they put you in the van. So those kind of stuff. So we knew we were going through those difficulties, and we said we had to fight against this. And there was no transport system for us to go to university. For example, we had to hike to go to university. So all these things in place, we looked at each other and we said, hey, wait a minute, we have to do this, but we also have to do the other side. We have to fight against the system, and we need to navigate around this in the best way we can. And that's what we did.
I certainly remember those times. The riot squad and police were on campus. That could not have been easy. You've often recalled very fondly the role that Professor Sunil Miraj had played in your
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
getting you over to Wits. If you can just talk us through that, please, Faisal.
Uh, uh, he told me, look, you had a lot of options because he'd been to Wits before and he knew what. He studied 1 year before me at Wits. He said, why don't you go to Wits? In fact, he drove me to Wits. I even remember that we were driving up from Durban. I won't forget that. And so he said, look, let's go to Wits and look at the option. But the point was, when we went and when we went again, when he drove me up, I was late. I was about 2 weeks late, I think. And then the then head of department had to write to the vice chancellor to get me admission, which I managed. So Sunil was 1 year ahead of me. And of course, our friendship was from that time, even up to now. So Sunil has always been like, in the landscape, promoting mathematics, mathematical physics. And so it's been like, and when he left Wits, it was like, he's going to UKZN. So at that time, going to joining. So also at that time, the Roy Martins was at Wits, also left and went away to UK. So I think from that point of view, there was some kind of void, and then I don't know why Sunil decided that he wanted to go back. But anyway, I think when he went back, he formed that strong group there. So he promoted lots of us in trying to pursue mathematical physics, and even up to now, he's doing that, and even organizing of conferences, the 18th conference and relativity conferences. He's active in that.
So you came up to to Wits to do an honors degree, is that right?
Yes, yes.
And you stayed on for another 40 years then.
Yeah, look, I mean, I was remembering what my grandfather said and my father. My father was like a factory worker, and but he wanted us to study further. And even my cousin, he said, you need to go and study further. So I hung around and I said, look, what options I have. So my project was quite exciting. I worked on simplification of equations, linearization. In fact, that idea still works beautifully now. We managed to generalize it again and again and again and again to nth order. So that was what started my honors.
So you
Yeah.
obviously had good experiences. You had quality folk here at Wits. The Wits Maths, Applied Maths has always been world class. We are a little limited for time. I just kind of want to touch a little bit on some other thoughts that you will no doubt have. Obviously, mathematics is such an important discipline. At university, for instance, every student in the Faculty of Science has to take mathematics. Similarly with engineering, but the state of mathematics in schools is is so poor. Just wondered what you think we can be doing better to improve the state of mathematics in South Africa, Fazal.
That, that's a very good question. Yeah, I remember in the 90s, I was involved with the school liaison interaction with the schools from
Yes.
the faculty. Um, and I even gave talks to schools, popular talks in mathematics. In fact, to such an extent that we had students from school coming to university and remembering the talks that we gave. I remember one of the talks I gave is, what is mathematical modeling? So I remember one of. So this was part of the school liaison that dealt with that dealt with schools. I think the important thing is to have interaction with schools. I tried to promote that in the center. We did it a bit. We had science festivals and so on. But we also, with the World Match 2000 awards, medals, we went to schools and we gave awards to top students. But again, we need to go more towards regional schools and look at, how we can get better teachers in that system, in those feeder schools to the universities. And also, from the other side, how to have how to have research staff in particular in universities. So the thing that we were looking at from the center point of view was to have workshops in regional universities, proper workshops, and even summer schools. And I think that's being done by NITEX at the moment, like, having workshops so that people are actively involved, younger people, and then more and more get involved with regional universities. And maybe if the pay structure at regional universities is higher, there'll be encouragement for more people to joining regional universities, not only the advantage universities. So looking on one side with the feeder schools and how universities can interact with the feeder schools. Because if you look at the so-called private schools, they have special math teams and they have specialist maths teachers. So they have particular programs to make sure that their students are the best in mathematics. These are so-called private schools. And even they have interactions with the universities and even with people that math educationists who could promote mathematics in their schools.
And mathematics is such a beautiful subject. I've certainly found it fascinating as a theoretical physicist myself. And I think we can be doing a lot more, as you're suggesting, and also to turn this subject into more fun. I think there's a lot of fun and enjoyment in mathematics, and not always are we emphasizing the beauty of the subject. Just a final question from you then, Fazal, and I've so enjoyed my conversations with you, and I want to ask your thoughts about the future then of mathematics, applied mathematics as a research endeavor. Do you have any particular views about that, say from the pure mathematics side, in terms of fundamental theory? Are there particular areas that you think are still open-ended in terms of research questions? Of course, there are great opportunities for applications in a variety of different topics. You mentioned physics, chemistry, and so on. But do you see aspects related to artificial intelligence creeping into mathematical studies? What are your thoughts about the future?
I think there are some fundamental questions that needs to be understood. Um, the the relationship between symmetries and conservation laws. Uh, we found that relationship, but how to use it in an effective way, how to construct conservation laws, there could be much more done on that. There's a nice open question there. And also the other one is when you're trying to solve equation simplification, linearization, they are more what you call more. They could be more transparent way, more to do that in terms of the coefficients of whatever is an equation. Like for example, if you look at the Black-Scholes equation in finance, it can be reduced to the heat equation. the question that was asked to me some years ago, I remember, was how can you do it in the simplest way possible? And then there was a student of mine, Charlemagne Poe, who ended up in the Reserve Bank, solved that problem. He's managed to do it using symmetry techniques. And there was another guy, Kenneth John Pillay, who looked at how you can do general parabolic equations to simplified equations in a systematic way. So they like that. There are these questions about um, Hamiltonian systems, the inverse problem, for example. When is a system Hamiltonian? How do you make that Hamiltonian? Because Hamiltonians appear not only in mechanics, in physics, it appears also in economics now. And because you have control aspects in economics. So there was an aspect that we developed there. So there could be more on that aspect as well.
Of course. Fantastic, and I'm delighted that you're continuing with your research, and I wish you all the very best. I do want to thank you sincerely for your lifelong contributions here at Wits, and as you plan for retirement, I hope that you will stay closely connected with Wits and that you'll continue with your productive work for many years to come. So all the very best to you then, Fazal.
Thank you very much, Nitya. Thank you for all your support, and I really thank the faculty, all the colleagues.
All the best to you now. Cheers.
Thank you very much.